This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
There's one company right now in the US that's probably more important than any other company, and it's not who you're thinking about. All right, so we're going to have more on that today. But first, welcome. My name's Jordan Wilson. This is Everyday AI. It's your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday people keep up with AI and how we can actually all get ahead. All right, so before we talk about what is that one company that's really helping the United States in general and the US stock market continue to surge ahead, before we get to that, let's talk about what's going on in the world of AI news. And as a reminder, if you're joining us live, please leave us a comment. Let's have a conversation together. That's what this show is all about. All right, so a couple big things to talk about in the world of AI news. First, the Pentagon is getting assistance from Silicon Valley on the battlefield. So a new report looks at from the Financial Times, it looks at how the U.S. Department of Defense is investing in artificial intelligence systems to conduct surveillance everywhere, and how Silicon Valley VCs are investing in defense and weapons tech startups. So it's been a really big story over the last couple of months, how kind of just the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. military is starting to use AI in all aspects of training on the battlefield. So it's something to keep an eye on. All right, a new study from the Pew Research Center is showing that AI is coming for white-collar jobs. So, a lot of times we think that AI, it might just replace low-paying jobs. That's not the case, at least to this new Pew Research Center study that shows about 1 in 5 American workers will have a job with high exposure to being replaced by artificial intelligence. And it also is showing that not just high-earning white-collar jobs that are at risk, but also specifically women's jobs may be most at risk. So more in the newsletter about that, so make sure you check it out. All right, and last but not least, ChatGPT is acing Harvard classes. Oh, that's right. So a new story just came out today showing how one Harvard University student is passing her first-year classes and actually told her teachers when she's submitting her work that most of it is being done with ChatGPT. So make sure to check out more in the newsletter about that, but pretty interesting. I think so many students are using it and not saying anything, but this Harvard student told her teachers when she's turning in her papers, and so far getting almost all A's, averaging about a 3.5 GPA. So not bad, ChatGPT doing it, getting that Harvard degree. All right, as a reminder, let's go ahead and talk about one thing before we jump into what we are talking about today, which is one company. But first, you have one day. You have one day left. Make sure to go to youreverydayai.com and sign up not just for our free newsletter, but we are giving away 6 months of ChatGPT Plus and 6 private lessons with our team. So maybe you already have the premium version of ChatGPT Plus, and you don't need it, but you need one-on-one lessons. Let me tell you, it's something we've been doing now for months. I think we've helped hundreds of people learn how to better use ChatGPT. So make sure you go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the giveaway. It ends today. It takes about 7 seconds. All right. Now, let's get back to what we started to talk about here. What is that one company? And right as I am about to get into this, I wanted to shout out to everyone that's already joining live. So if you're listening on the podcast, make sure to check the show notes. So we're going to have links for you to check out, but also a link for you to come join us live. This whole podcast and live stream is about creating connection and helping people learn AI. So we do it together. So a couple comments already. Jan joining us saying good morning. Harvey joining us, Dr. Harvey Castro. Can you drop the link to Pew Research? Absolutely. It'll be in the newsletter. Cecilia, good morning, joining us. All right. Let's talk about that one company. How is one company right now so important to the U.S. economy? What is that company? What are they doing? And what does it mean? Dr. Harvey Castro in the comments already got it right. It's NVIDIA. All right. One company. It's not Apple. It's not Google. It's not Microsoft. It's not Tesla. It is NVIDIA, right? And I'm going to come with some hot takes this morning. Normally we keep it very news-based, and we're bringing on experts every day and asking for their opinion. I'm going to give you guys some hot takes this morning to start our week off right. I think NVIDIA right now is the most important company for the United States, and it may be one of the most important companies for our economy and our progress forward, even as a society. All right. So as I explain that hot take, let me first tell you why I feel that way. And even let's even rewind a little more. Let's talk about what NVIDIA is and what they do. So to keep it simple, even before this big AI boom, AI was one of the, or NVIDIA was still one of the largest companies in the United States, but it's all about chips. So much talk has been around chips. So these chips that we often refer to when we're talking about other companies needing them, how they're driving really just production, and they can't even keep up with demand, not even close. But chips, GPUs run so many of these other companies. So graphics processing unit. These are essentially chips that all companies need in order to run their AI systems, right? So when we talk about some of the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Meta, what do they all have in common? They use NVIDIA's chips, right? And all of these companies have come out and said in the last couple of months that they're going to not just double down on AI, but triple down. You have large CEOs saying, we are going to build AI into every single part of our platform, into every single part of our company. To do that, all companies need NVIDIA chips. And right now, NVIDIA has been the leader in this space for a decade plus, right? So when ChatGPT, as an example, right? We all know ChatGPT. We've heard of it, but guess what ChatGPT needs to run their product? Guess what OpenAI needs? They need chips specifically from NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is the only one that has powerful enough GPUs that these companies can rely on, right? Let's take a look at a couple of numbers here. All right. So right now, NVIDIA has about 80% market share in the GPU space, right? And Citibank says that that's expected to actually grow to 90%. All right. And right now, NVIDIA has a $1.1 trillion market cap. So they are valued at more than $1 trillion. So why do I think that this is important? And why do I think it's something that it's worth paying attention to? So we already talked about the future, right? Companies have already said, the biggest companies have already said they're going to start to bake AI into all of their products, offerings, and services. That's one aspect. But let's now look at the economy. We mentioned some of these big names, right? Also, let's look a little before this most recent AI boom, right? So I think generative AI has really been one of the leading news pieces, has been one of the most promising tech advancements in probably decades, if not even longer. So it probably all started with ChatGPT in 2022. So many of these, generative AI platforms have been around before that, but it was really ChatGPT coming out in November 2022 that made the rest of the world and US companies and investors start to look at generative AI seriously. How seriously? Well, if you take away some of the leading companies that we just talked about, NVIDIA and some of the other chip makers, your big tech companies, it has been, and there's been plenty of stories that we share every single day in the newsletter about this, but AI related stocks are driving the US economy. And it is obviously NVIDIA that is the backbone of this growth. So, if you rewind, 9 months, 12 months ago, at least here in the US, I know we have, people watching and listening from other parts of the country. But when you look at the economy, it drives so much of our day-to-day decision making, right? Whether we're going to buy a new car, whether we're going to get a new house, how much money we're going to put in the bank, right? So much of it is driven by the economy here in the US. And 9 months ago, 12 months ago, the outlook wasn't good. Everything was recession. We are headed toward a recession. And then what happened is over the last 6 months, most major indexes measuring the US economy, we've had about a 15 to 20% growth. Depending on, are you looking at the S&P? Are you looking at the NASDAQ, at the Dow? So in 6 months, we've had pretty solid growth, 15 to 20%. Whereas before this generative AI craze, we were talking about, is the US heading into a long-term recession? Why do I bring that up? Well, so many, even big companies that don't have a tie-in to generative AI, they are still making big decisions in their economy, in their companies based on the economy. All right. So that is why, getting back to what I originally talked about, that is why I think NVIDIA is probably the single most important company right now in the US economy. As all of these AI companies and companies related to AI. So again, that's your Microsoft, your Google, your Apple, your Meta, your Tesla, these big companies that have been collectively driving AI growth, right? We shared a story about 2 months ago that at the time, if you took away all tech stocks, specifically those tech stocks that had ties to AI, the overall, I believe that story was the S&P. At that point, the S&P was up 20%. If you took away all those companies, it was even, right? So if you take away all of these tech stock growths that is fueling the economy, we are even, right? So that's the hot take for today. NVIDIA is probably right now the most important company in the United States. Because guess what? As all of these other companies are saying to their shareholders, to the general public, hey, we're coming out with this new technology. We're going to start incorporating this into our phones. I mean, let's even talk about Apple, right? Apple has started to develop some of their own chips. And, that they have their M1 chip, and they've stopped using, Apple has stopped using NVIDIA chips. But still, when Apple talks about, hey, we're going to bring Apple GPT, whatever it's called, right? To bring that to a phone, you're going to need chip production. When all these other companies are announcing new hardware products, even, most of them are using NVIDIA chips, right? So as we look about the future of our growth in AI, in technology, we can't forget about these GPU chips. All right. So this is obviously a pretty technical talk today on everyday AI, but I think it's important. I think this is important for us to understand not just how this technology works. Tesla, hey, That's something, even if you don't care much about ChatGPT or AI, Tesla uses NVIDIA chips. Probably your smartphone, your computer uses NVIDIA chips. If you're a gamer, it uses NVIDIA chips. And we have all of these new advancements in technology, helping to bring new advancements, new capabilities to computers, to the workplace. You have all these now big partnerships. Your sales forces of the world, starting to even bring generative AI to all of their clients, all driven by chips. All right. Again, this was a technical one, and I wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to be a dork this morning. Every once in a while, I have these hot takes that I want to come in with, and I want to share them with you because I feel they're that important. But as a reminder, we're going to have some less technical things this week. I'm going to go, normally I don't plug other shows on the show, but later this week, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT plugins. All right. We've had a lot of people requesting this. So actually, if you're excited about that, or if you want to hear us talk about something else on the show, go ahead and leave a comment right now if you're listening on the live stream, or if you're listening in the podcast, click in the show notes, email us, tell us what you want to hear. Okay. But we've had so many people asking about ChatGPT plugins. We've used hundreds of them. There's more than 800 plugins available. So later this week, we're going to be talking about that. So I did want to plug that. And as a reminder, please go to youreverydayai.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter. Let me tell you what's in that newsletter. Just about everything that you need to keep up with what's going on in the world of AI. Whether we realize it or not, kind of like how maybe you didn't realize how important NVIDIA is, to the US economy or to our society as a whole. But everything that you would need to keep up with AI advancements, new products, new services, new tools, and just what it means for your job and how we can all use and leverage these things. That's what our newsletter is about every single day. So make sure you sign up for that newsletter. Also, make sure you go sign up for our ChatGPT Plus giveaway that ends today. And make sure you join us the rest of the week on Your Everyday AI. Thank you for joining us. And I hope to see you back tomorrow and every day on Everyday AI. Thanks.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.